Trails and Ghost Towns with Mike Roberts and Bill Barlee.
Welcome to Gold Trails and Ghost Towns. We've decided to leave the cabin behind and come down to a river to see whether or not we can get a better feel for the kind of work that the prospectors did on all those different locations that we've been talking about on this program. I'm Mike Roberts with Bill Barlee, who's been our tour guide for these many, I guess, 13 different gold trails and ghost towns. What river have we chosen to take a look at?
Well, it's called Mission Creek today, Mike, and it's one of the little tributaries of Okanagan Lake, just to the east of Kelowna. But at one time it was a river, Rivière Laurence Sable, which meant Sandy Cove. And that was when the French Canadians were in this area. They were employees of the Hudson's Bay Company, and they discovered this particular creek was gold-bearing in the late 1850s, probably 59 or possibly 1860. And surprisingly enough, although it isn't in a noted gold belt, it yielded a significant quantity of gold.
So in this program, maybe we'll actually find some gold, real gold of our own.
I think we'll find some flood gold that comes down every year in this creek.
All right. We'll be back in just a second to get our hands dirty, tell a few of the stories about the people who did find gold here on Mission Creek, and generally today go over a few treasure stories we missed out in the past year as Gold Trails and Ghost Towns continues. Back to Gold Trails and Ghost Towns. Mike Roberts with Bill Barlee on the banks of Mission Creek. Some people made some money. They didn't get rich here, but they made some money out of Mission Creek.
Well, we don't know how well they did. We do know that the first miners here in 1860, 61, 62, right up to about 1868, did well, up to an ounce a day. Then they moved out, and of course the Chinese, who were the best placer miners in the business, Mike, they came in, and they worked not only at Mission Creek itself, but some of the tributaries. And they used hydraulics, which is kind of, they're called giants. They're kind of a water gun that washed down the gravel banks.
Water monitors,
That's right.
In another program.
Yeah, they're a monitor or a giant or a hydraulic. And they stayed here for a number of years. And then after the Chinese left, when the ground was not rich enough for them, you had the odd individual coming in, old prospectors like old Dan Gallagher, and Gallagher Canyon, of course, is named after him.
Well, that's essentially where we are, just a bit east of Gallagher's Canyon, right at the foot of Layer Cake Mountain. This is an area which has had people panning it. What did you find appealing about this spot?
Well, there's several things. One, it's in the gold section of the canyon. Now, we don't know where the gold came from, Mike. You know, usually you can find the original deposit of the gold. It's usually local origin. But in Mission Creek, there's some controversy over it. It seems to be that it probably comes under an ancient channel that runs under part of the town of Kelowna. The city of Kelowna is the Rutland area. So it probably comes through from Rutland, through from Wood Lake.
Gee, when you look at the country now, Wood Lake is downstream from everything. How could gold run upstream from here? What's changed?
Well, I mean, cataclysmic changes, you know, in the eon since the gold was deposited here. And what we will be getting today probably is just flood gold out of that old run. So and a number of people are looking for this, for the origin of the gold in Mission Creek.
Yeah.
Unsuccessfully, I might add.
Well, maybe we'll find it today. We have a huge boulder behind us here. Where does a prospector like yourself, a placer miner, look for gold? Well,
you would look on a bar or a bench, and we have a couple right behind us. The large boulder in view would be an ideal place to pan, but it's difficult for us because we're not in scuba gear. So you'd take a smaller rock right on the bench itself and dig downstream on the downstream side of that smaller rock, because the actual water, when it's higher, creates kind of a back eddy, and some of the gold will deposit there.
Just getting back to your scuba gear, I hadn't thought of that. I'm still thinking of rubber boots and gold pans, but if you had scuba gear, you could go underwater to the base of this rock and start getting the gravel out there.
Yes, it's technically illegal, but it has been done in a number of places in British Columbia.
Because of the siltation that it would happen in the stream?
Yes, it can affect a good fishing stream, and it should be well monitored, I think.
Now, this area is not on some sort of a gold sequence. What did you call it?
It isn't in the designated gold areas in the province, so that you could not actually stake this ground unless you went through an order in council. And this ground, which is kind of interesting, was originally owned by the Indians. They have now purchased this ground back again, so we're actually on Indian ground again.
With their permission, I might add.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Okay. Well, let's go and find one of these rocks that we can dig behind downstream of and see whether or not we can come up with some of that elusive gold stuff.
Nice day for prospecting.
Hey, when you walk up a creek, what separates one rock from another as far as you're concerned?
Well, you look to see what type of ground it's on. There shouldn't be too much sand. There should be gravel. The rock should be big enough to retard the current or affect the current in some way. Should be on an inside bend unless it's a bar. A number of things. You're looking for flat wash. You're looking for
flat wash,
which is a flat rock rather than rounded rocks. You always look for that in placer gold.
What does a flat rock do? Does it just disturb the water better?
No, it doesn't. It indicates that you're probably on a tertiary channel. That is a pre-glacial channel originally.
So if you've got round rocks, you're on a real old channel, and...
No, yeah, but the flat rocks would mean you're on an older channel.
Yeah.
That's, you know, so that's always a good sign. You look sometimes for cemented gravel, sometimes for oxidized gravel, that's coppery color or rusty colored gravel.
All right. Well, we look like we found a reasonable specimen. Where do you start to dig? In front of it, back of it, side of it? Where's the best spot?
Well, if you find a big rock sitting on a bench, you'd go behind the rock, the downstream side of the rock, and dig under it. That would be your best part to start prospecting.
Now, as you go down, do you expect to find some on the surface gravel behind it, or where do you begin to think you're going to come up with something?
On this creek, Mike, which has been well mined, as most creeks have been in the province of British Columbia and in the Northwest generally, you're hoping for flood gold. That is some gold that has been carried down by fresh water in the spring or high water.
So it would be fresh gold. It could have come down in the last year,
the last
25 years.
Well, probably last year, because you assume it's been gone over every year. And you'd look in the top few inches of the gravel, maybe the top 18 inches, varies with the creek, sometimes only the top 3 inches.
What do you do first?
You mix it in well, Mike. Make sure that the water is getting right to the bottom of the pan.
I can just see flakes leaping out of there. You're
Not really,
so rough.
you can. And you pan upstream against the current so that if any little flake's going to escape on you, the current's going to pick it up and bring it back in. And this riffle is designed to keep the fine gold in there. And I'm using my left hand to get rid of some of the rocks, which if you're panning right, come to the surface.
And even though a rock like that you just threw out is so much heavier than one of those little tiny pieces of gold, in comparison to its size, the gold will sink and then it'll just get flipped out.
That's right. It's all specific gravity is what it is.
Would the old pioneers and prospectors have really used a pan at the beginning, or would they have rocker boxes?
No, always the pan. This was the prospecting tool. You know, I mean, this is the tool they had to use. And they'd use different pan. They use a straight lip pan. This is a riffle pan. And this, and sometimes they'd put in a series of riffles with a nail and pan, you know, through a series of riffles just to make sure they kept the fine gold. When we get down to here, Mike, we start tailing the pan.
Now, you went through, what was in there, about 25 pounds of rock and gravel?
About 15 to 20 pounds, yeah.
And you went through that in
a few seconds.
Yeah.
Oh, under 2 minutes, yeah. I mean, you can go through it faster, but...
You were left in there with just a few ounces of the stuff.
Pretty coarse color right there, too, you see.
Yeah.
And some more coarse colors coming up underneath.
Yeah, really quite a pile of them.
Yeah. And a few garnets, which are indicators.
Now, if this was the similkameen, you'd even find some platinum in there.
Yeah, you would.
Maybe you'd find it on.
There's another dozen colors in there, you see.
Well, maybe I'll try my hand at panning the next one.
I think you should.
All right. Bill, I'm washing more gold out of this pan. I can feel it.
Oh, yeah. Make sure you use lots of water in it, Mike. And remember, it's kind of a forward motion, too.
Look at that. I can move stuff out of here at the by the ton.
And remember, you bring that water right back in the pan. Right back in the pan. It's good there, Mike.
Go ahead, Honor Bill.
Okay. Okay.